Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews Saturday Conversation Show, a weekly interview series where I talk to entertainment personalities, filmmakers, content creators about their work and love of movies. Today's guest is Michael A. Smith, film critic and author whose latest book, Finatics, delves into the fandom and pop culture influence of the monster blockbuster Jaws that was released 50 years ago, back in the time of 1975. The book, however, came out a couple of months ago. Right there. Read it, love it, find it to be a fascinating book. The links for where you can get the book yourself, I will have in the show notes. And Michael A. Smith, congratulations to you on the release of the book, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you. Very glad to be here.
I like to start these conversations just talking a little bit about the origin story of the person I'm talking to in regards to their love of movies. I know all about the Jaws story, like how you came about to watch Jaws. I was kind of curious though, what was your first cinema experience? Do you remember the first time you watched a movie in the cinemas?
The very first movie I saw, I can't remember the year it came out. Maybe I was 2 years old. At the drive-in with my parents was From Russia with Love.
Oh wow.
And and I still distinctly remember coming home that night and going to bed, and my bedroom above my bed, my ceiling was kind of slanted, and on the white ceiling, I saw scenes from the movie.
Hmm.
And that is all that has always stuck with me. So that's my probably my earliest memory of anything, but certainly my earliest cinematic memory.
From what I've read in my research in regards to yourself, movies was kind of like something that you really fell into at a young age as a teenager, even worked in the movie theater. Is that right? When you were like, what,
I
1976, you're around 15, 16 years old?
I did. I My dad was a contractor. He built houses and he built uh, hotels. And I had just gotten out of school for the summer, and he took me to work with him. And they were putting a roof on a new Holiday Inn um, in Florida in June. And I had one day, and you're the boss's kid, so you can't slack off. And then that night, a friend of mine called me, and he worked at a local cinema, and he said, "Hey, we're hiring." And so I went up and I applied, and I got the job. And I told my dad, I said, I just don't want to be the boss's kid. I didn't say, I don't want to work outside when it's 100 degrees and you're putting tar on a roof.
Hmm.
Um, so I got hired. My very first job at the theater, I was taken upstairs to a big closet, and I was told to get rid of all this stuff. And it was all one sheet posters. So this was early 70. Well, no, it was, yeah. So probably from 75 back. Um, so I put them all in trash bags. And when my dad picked me up from work, I put the trash bags full of posters in the car, and took some to school and gave them to friends. But that kind of really started my love of movies. And then working in the theater, I had a chance to see anything that came out
Hmm.
um, multiple times. We would spend our day off going to another theater, and um, so it just kind of I lucked into a lifetime passion.
Your first exposure to Jaws is such a fascinating story because it's almost kind of like a sliding doors moment, or it can be anyway. So
Hmm.
you're telling your dad, so the story that I read is you're saying to your dad, hey, there's this movie I keep seeing ads about. I want to go see it. He drops you off at the theater. You go up to the ticket booth and you say, one for Dog Day Afternoon, please. And the lady behind the
Exactly.
ticket booth said, that's a 18 plus movie. By the way, how great is it that you can have the option for asking for Dog
I
Day
know.
Afternoon and all these other movies that are at that time? That's fantastic. And then she says, have you heard of this movie called Jaws? And you're like, oh, no, I haven't. You watched it, and thus begins kind of like this odyssey, this Jaws odyssey. They're really kind of, I think, not to say that you probably wouldn't have gone into writing about films or anything, but I think Jaws is kind of like the impetus, the movie that kind of like pushed you forward into kind of like this where you are now in your life as kind of like not only a Jaws connoisseur, but as a film critic and author and so many other things, worked in films as well. Do you ever think back and think what happened? What would happen if that lady gave me that dog day afternoon ticket? Do you think that your life, your career will be different than it is now? Would you still be Michael A. Smith, the author and film critic, that didn't watch Jaws at one time, but maybe you wrote a book about, I don't know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or Dog Day or
Mhm.
whatever film came out in 75?
That's a great question. It is a sliding doors moment, um, because for whatever reason, that film just resonated with me and just stuck with me, and it still is today. 50 years later, I judge every film I see with Jaws,
Mm.
and I get a lot of criticism, and people say, "Oh, you say it's a great movie. Is it better than The Godfather? Is it better than?" No, it's not. I mean, The Godfather is a classic. Lawrence of Arabia is a classic. 2001 is a classic, but I don't get the same emotional uh, input connection I do with those films. So that's why, and I did. I drove my dad crazy. I was doing our Let's Talk Jaws show last night and talking about it. And in high school, that my nickname was Jaws. All my
Mm.
yearbooks, all my yearbooks. There's no one that wrote, "Hey, Mike, have a good summer." It's like Jaws, have a good summer. So for whatever reason, that film just imprinted on me and has stuck with me since the day I saw it.
It's interesting sometimes how, like, maybe that one film or filmmaker or director, sometimes we just get fixated on. And it kind of, like you said, it's a standard bearer for something that comes afterwards. I remember when I was in I think I was 18, 19 years old. So I'd watch movies, but I wasn't like a what do you call cinephile, film buff kind of thing. But I watched movies. I enjoyed them as an entertainment aspect. And then one night, late on TV, Serpico came on, the Sidney Lumet film with Al Pacino,
Mhm.
and that movie changed everything for me because I was watching the film that wasn't like popcorn fodder. I was watching kind of like what you call like a serious movie, fascinating movie, fantastic performance, and me watching that movie led me down the road of watching anything I could get my hands on Pacino. So then you come to Godfather, Dog Day, everything. Then that splinters off. Coppola, Scorsese, and it splinters off to everything else. And I think it's interesting sometimes how that one movie is like the nucleus behind the whole world around it of movies and anything else really as well. Um, and it's kind of what's interesting to me though is that when it comes to Jaws and your movie Fanatics, when you hear of fanaticism in film, you immediately think certain movies, Star Trek, Star Wars, because of the merchandise and everything else that comes with it, right? I never
Certainly.
saw Jaws as a movie. I know it's a big film. It's one of my favorite films of all time, and I know the pop culture influence in regards to how it kind of like seeps into the mainstream. You know, the John Williams score and everything else. But I didn't think of it as kind of like collector's item movie. You know what I mean? Where people can just surround themselves with all things kind of Jaws. And what's so fascinating about your book is that not only goes into like the merchandising machine, all of it, but you talk to like all these different collectors of all this Jaws stuff. And I was like, I didn't even know any of this stuff existed. I mean, I got a Jaws cup, which I'm sipping from right here, but I thought that was like the extent of it. I didn't know like all these things were out, like, I don't know, ornaments and replica stuff from the set and everything else. I mean, it's just fascinating me to see this fandom. Did you know that this fandom was something that was so big in regards to the extent of the merchandise and the people collecting it? I mean, when did that first kind of came to your radar?
With the birth of the internet, the only thing I had as a kid, as a teenager, I had the game of Jaws with the big shark with the rubber band in the mouth, and you put all the stuff in it, and you try to take it out, and eventually
Mm.
it closes on you. And I had some jewelry, which was like the Jaws logo on a little chain, like a necklace, and that was really all I had. And I had the movie posters because the theater I worked at, they gave me the movie posters, and that's all I had. And then with the invention of the internet and then eBay, and I would get on eBay and I would just, type Jaws in the search engine, and they'd say, "Oh, I never know they did this," or
Mm.
here's a Halloween costume, um, here's a squirt gun. There's a lot of stuff that I missed either probably because I wasn't looking for it. I I was 15. I didn't have squirt guns or bubblegum rings anymore, but there was some good vintage merchandise that was out there. And then it was the popularity of eBay. And then Jake Gove started his jawsmovie.com site. And, all of a sudden there were thousands of people. And I have this, or has anybody seen this? And, they would post stuff that it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I'd known that. I wish I knew in 77 that Datsun, if you went to a Datsun dealer, they gave out a poster for upcoming for Jaws 2. Or I wish I knew 7-Eleven had the little Slurpee glasses. Um, but and as I look online, I mean, there's still stuff that shows up. Um, I just my son for Father's Day got me a large, very heavy, almost like a ceramic bank, but it's made by the same company that does a lot of the classic horror statues, the ones that
Mm.
are like 2 foot, 3 foot tall that people use for door stops. And I had never seen that before, but it was licensed. It was something they made in 75 that, somebody in Kansas had and put on Facebook Marketplace and he saw it. So the amount of stuff that's coming out now is just astounding. Everywhere you go, there's a Jaws 50 of something.
I think when we talk about pre-post internet, I'm always fascinated with stuff, how stuff kind of worked pre-internet. Because for myself, I was probably around 16, 17, where like, computers and Windows 95 and the internet afterwards kind of started happening. So I still have memories of what things were like before that, magazines, zines, old, analog stuff, Um, when if we go back to 1976 and you start fan clubs for Richard Dreyfuss and then later for Roy Scheider,
Yes.
how does that come about? Because these days, people like if a young kid will want to start something, they'll do a social media thing or create, something online, whatever. Back then, resources were more scarce. They're trying to get in contact with people, trying to start something, trying to get the access to, say, printing supplies, whether to make a zine would have been much more harder. So, how do you go about number one? Getting in contact with people in the Dreyfus and Scheider camps to kind of start these official fan clubs? And number two, what was those fan clubs like? Were you releasing zines every year? Were you was there like I don't know, a pen pal letter club? Like how did that all kind of work?
The first Richards fan club, there used to be two magazines that Rona Barrett, who was a Hollywood columnist, published. One was called Gossip, one was called Hollywood. And in the back of them, they had like little like fan ads, and people were like, do you like so and so right here? And one was for Richard Dreyfuss. And so I wrote away, and I got a letter back from Arlene Chain, who was Richard's cousin, who was running his fan club. And for $5, it's $5 a year, and you join. So I sent her the $5, and I kind of put like a little note, hey, if you ever need any help, let me know. And she sent me the stuff for me, but then she also sent me a set of snapshots of Richard at home, reading a script or eating dinner, um, and a 5x7 black and white negative of him from Jaws in the scuba suit, and
Hmm.
his autograph was it was like pre-signed. So when you printed the black and white photo, it was signed.
Hmm.
And she said, "Thanks for offering to help. It's getting busy. You're in charge of the East Coast of the United States."
Wow.
So um, I did that for a while, and then after a few months, all of a sudden I was running the whole thing. Um, so I did the same thing. I put a little personal note in one of the gossip columns, and had a bunch of fans. But basically, 4 times a year, um, I would go, collect all the newspaper clippings, or where he's doing this he's up in Mobile, Alabama, doing Close Encounters, or the Big Fix is coming out. And I got to be very good, not friends, but very familiar with his agent, Meyer, Michigan, and he would send me stuff as it came out. Here's a press kit for Close Encounters. Here's this. Here's that. And then every 3 months, I would take what I had. I would try to arrange it as neat as I can, and then I would go to a copy center and Xerox it, and so everybody then I would mail it out. And so about 6 months later, I wrote fan letters also to Roy Scheider and Robert Shaw, and told them, hey, I'm running Richard Dreyfuss's fan club, and if you guys want a fan club, I'd be happy to set it up. I got a letter back from Roy's agent, and I still have it. It's on an orange card. Because back then you sent your fan mail to the studio, so
Mm.
I sent them both to Universal, and I guess the Universal person in the mailroom sent them both to Roy's agent, and they wrote back, "We only represent Scheider, not Shaw, and Roy's not interested in a fan club." Oh, okay, that's fine, not a
Hmm.
problem. Well, then I find out, of course, Jaws 2 is being made. It's being made up in Florida. So my dad and stepmother, for some reason, went up to Plains, Georgia, where President Carter was from, to go,
Hmm.
I don't know, go see the peanut fields. I don't know. So we went up, friends and I, we went up to to Pensacola, Fort Walton Beach, where they were filming, and they were all staying at the Holiday Inn. And if you've seen Jaws 2, where the opening scene is, the Holodome and the pool, that's where the cast was staying. And I just put like a little letter, and I said, "Would you put this in Mr. Scheider's mailbox?" And it was basically the same thing that I had written, 6 months before. And I got back home, and the day after my 17th birthday, I got a letter that says, "Dear Michael Smith and Company, I have sent your letter to so and so. You have my permission to start my official fan club. My publicist, Nancy Seltzer, will help you in any way she can." And Nancy sent me, some photos to reproduce. So that's how I started with his. So it was, 17 years old. It was kind of fun.
It's so fun listening to that because it almost seems like you're like going on like an espionage mission. You're trying to go through back channels to try to get through. It's like a political thriller. I love it. And it goes to show as well, just like if you want it to happen, and you don't have the resources, ingenuity is such a skill that's needed to make things like this happen. Like even these days, it's hard sometimes to get in touch with people with all the resources we have, but you just got to sometimes think outside the box and make it happen. So I think that's just absolutely fantastic. Um,
As a side note, um, we jump forward another 6, 7 months, and a friend and I are coming out of a movie, and we see somebody holding a newspaper. And back then, when newspapers were in vogue, they would have a morning paper and an evening paper,
mm,
and it was the evening paper, Tampa Times, and all we could see under the fold was that Jaws star dies.
oh wow.
And we ran over, and it was Robert Shaw. Robert Shaw had
Mm.
passed. And when I got home, there was a envelope on my bed, and I opened it, and inside the envelope was the autographed picture I had written away for 2 years earlier.
Oh, for Robert
So
Shaw.
from Robert
Wow.
Shaw.
Wow.
So I got that photo on the day he passed.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Great story. For sure has to be one of your most treasured items, I'd imagine. Hi guys, Matt here from Matt's Movie Reviews, letting you know that the Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel has launched channel membership. This provides exclusive videos and other cool stuff as well for all channel members. It's under one tier, one price, and with that one price you get exclusive reviews. For example, I'll be going through the American Film Institute's top 100 movies. So every week I'll do a new review based on that movie list. You can get exclusive reviews based on your requests. Request a movie review and I will review it for you. You'll also get exclusive content for behind the scenes stuff as well. You also get exclusive interviews that I haven't posted yet as part of my podcast, like older interviews with Academy Award winners and other great filmmakers and actors as well, and a bunch of other cool stuff as well. I hope you can all join up, be part of this great experience I have an offer for you. Support indie content creators, support a movie critic like myself who is trying to make it through the content creator space. Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel memberships. Please join and get some great exclusive content.
I love them both. Jesus. I'm gonna go with Cuckoo's Nest because it was a more of an ensemble cast. I mean, Dog Day was a tour de force for Pacino, but I will go with Cuckoo's Nest. And it won Best Picture, so I'm being validated there.
Yeah, and that was like one of those films, right? They did picture, director, star, screenplay, supporting actress. I mean, that
Yeah.
was just like across the board, which is amazing to think. Again, 1975 was such a strong year, and such a bit of bullshit as well because Spielberg didn't get nominated for director, which is just I think goes down in Oscar history as one of the great snubs. I think.
Well,
Next one.
that's a
Yeah.
question I've posed. There's a video of him um, the day the Oscar nominations are announced,
I saw it.
and
Yes. Yeah.
Joe Spinell's at his house in his Jaws shirt, and he's gonna blah 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 blah, and Spielberg says, we're gonna sweep." I think he says either 10 or 11 nominations, and back then Jaws would have been eligible for 13 awards, and I've
Mm.
always wondered what he thought those 10 or 11 nominations were going to be. So I always try to go over my head and go, okay, who would get this? Who would get that? But yeah, that was the first slight of, the first were a popular film. And even in that video, Joe Spinell says it, it's the backlash of having a monster hit.
It's so great to think about the great Joe Spinell being there. Sometimes videos come up from the 70s are just so random, and there's Joe Spinell from the infamous actor and personality from just being in all types of 70s movies. So yeah, it's great to see him in there. Next one, physical media or streaming?
Physical media,
How
always.
many how many versions of Jaws do you have on DVD or Blu-ray, would you say?
Let's see, I've got it in beta, single VHS, double VHS, three different laser discs. I've got like a Chinese from China, like a China DVD, probably 12.
Wow.
I just got one the other day at Walmart that the cover is like a TV screen and with Jaws across it. So, you know, I'm like the Beatle fans that have, 15 different copies of Revolver,
Yeah.
because this one has the green label, this one has the orange label. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the same with well, my favorite film of all time is The Exorcist, so I got several different versions things of that. But The Godfather as well. It's my other favorite movie. Godfather, Godfather 2, so I got numerous different versions of that too.
Still
Next
the
one,
scariest movie ever made.
Exorcist. Yes,
Oh, yes.
absolutely. Next, practical effects or CGI?
Practical, because when they're CGI, even though they look good, they're CGI.
Hmm.
Um, but practical stuff when you look at Jaws, or you look at what George Lucas did with Star Wars, but the early ones,
Yeah, yeah.
not the other ones. Um,
Green screen extravaganzas.
yes. Um, I think I think it's sometimes CGI allows the filmmaker to be lazy and to maybe think, okay, this looks so good, maybe we don't have to rewrite that scene. Maybe, it wasn't tight enough, or the pacing wasn't right, but they're going to be impressed, with the dinosaur. So, you know, yeah. So definitely practical.
Last one. You're at the cinema. You better sit down and watch a movie. What's your go-to snack? Would that be popcorn or candy?
Popcorn,
How do you like your
popcorn.
popcorn?
Buttered, a little bit of salt. I spent 20 years in the theater business doing marketing, And I used to go by theaters at night and check on stuff. And my diet was Dr. Pepper and popcorn for 20 years.
Wow.
And even now, when I go to the movies, I head right to the concession stand.
Someone who's seen movies for such a long time and worked in theaters, have you ever found that the quality of popcorn has changed over the years?
It depends. Um, what they do a lot now, and what they kind of did when I started as a kid, bigger theaters. Another one of my jobs was on Thursday. I would come in and I would just popcorn
Mm,
for 8 hours or 4 hours and bag it up, put it in big plastic trash bags, and then we'd bring it down, put it in the warmers. You would still popcorn at the concession stand in the popper to get the smell, and
right.
for people, "Oh, it smells like popcorn." But a lot of popcorn, it's depends what, how kind of oil they use, how much flavor call they use, what the temperature is. We had at my old job, we had a popcorn machine, and I was the only one they would let make popcorn because I would use some theater tricks where it would come out, you know, just right.
We talked about Michael A. Smith, the film fan, and the emergence of the fanatic that he will become. I want to talk about your career as a writer. So when you come into film criticism, from what I understand, Stephen Hunter, who was a, film critic at the time, is it true that you won some type of prize or auction where you got to hang out with him, watch a movie with him, and was that kind of like the kind of like the spark that kind of led you down to do film writing as to try to seek it out as a profession?
Yes, I had we had just I was in the service in the late 70s, early 80s, and I had come over from Germany to Aberdeen, which is outside of Baltimore, and there was a PBS uh, auction, public broadcasting, and I bid on two things. One was to uh, be do a segment for a show that was, it wasn't called Good Morning Baltimore, but it was similar to that, where I had to go. At the time, Altered States had just come out,
Hmm.
and the little chamber that he gets in, that was really popular. So my segment was to go do one of those chambers. And the other one was go see a movie with Stephen Hunter and go to lunch afterwards and talk about it. And I won that. So we went and we saw the movie was Beastmaster, and we went ahead and after lunch talked about, went to lunch, talked about it, and right about then, within a year, I got out of the service, and I had taken uh, a part-time job uh, as a doorman at a movie theater just to make some extra money. And I was talking to the manager and telling him, I've got to make up my mind. Am I going to re-enlist for another 3 years, or am I going to do something else? And he said, well, we're looking for theater managers. So I ended up being a theater manager for a while, and I was working in a theater, and a woman came in and she was waiting for her daughter to come out. They were seeing Teen Wolf,
Mm.
and she was telling me I have this ad agency, and our one of our clients, we do some film companies, but we're doing like Amelia Earhart luggage. And I said, oh, don't, I said, your slogan should be don't get lost without it.
Mm.
And and she said, oh, that's great. And do you want to come intern for us? So I went to work with her, and then I started doing film promotions. And so I became more friendly with Stephen. And so, uh, I just, so I've always been a fan of film and writing, to myself and journals and stuff. And when my son was playing Little League Baseball, I would write up the game, the game, so and so got a hit and so and so scored. And I was talking to the editor of the newspaper, the local paper. I said, "You guys need a film critic." And they said, "Well, why don't you do it?" So that's how I got into it. I
Was
was
that
doing,
the Leavenworth times?
11 more times, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and then I was asked to join the Kansas City Film Critics Circle, and in 2010, with my partner Mike Giancarelli, we started MediaMikes.com,
Hmm.
and it's just so really for the last 25 years now. It's really been a it doesn't pay the bills, but it's really been a full-time endeavor.
Yeah, I've been next year would be 20 years for me. And when I started out, I started writing for free for like whoever, like just to get my name out there, get experience, make contacts. Um, and I remember the times when like writing for print, magazines, newspapers, all the such, when a lot of those were available to write for. And I always find it interesting, and I have a little bit of despair in regards to the current state of kind of like entertainment media, especially when it comes to film criticism and just journalism in general, if you can even call it that these days. I don't know what you call it, but and I'm just curious when it comes to yourself, when the internet kind of comes in and things like, Rotten Tomatoes and that becomes popular, and then it comes to the point where anyone can become a film critic, it was really cool. But then the problem came that anyone can become a film critic, right? And the pool started to get a little, starting to get a little diluted there and such. What's your kind of like experience being in the game now for like will be like 25 years when looking at the state of film criticism? Do you think that my personal opinion is that it doesn't feel like criticism, but it feels more like movie influencer culture these days. And I think that's been a real shame because I think these days too many people are in it more for the perks and not in it for the art of actual criticism in itself.
I'm sorry, but my camera shift. I just want to make sure you can still see me.
I can see it, yes.
Okay, perfect. Um, I think sadly, film criticism is going the way of the dinosaur. Um, we have I live in the Kansas City area, the home of American multi-cinema. This city has the most theater screens per capita in America, and um, we very rarely get critic screenings anymore.
Hmm,
And it's not that they're not having screenings because the studio would rather have, people come out of when Joker, the second Joker movie came out. Um, all TikTok was everywhere. Hey, I just came out and saw it. It's really good or it's really bad. And that's what they're looking for. They're not putting any emphasis. We still get at the end of the year, we'll get the quote unquote prestige films, screenings to go see that.
hmm,
But there was a period at the beginning of the year where I think between January and April, I think we had two screenings,
hmm.
where 5 years ago, sometimes there were two screenings a week. And like I
Yeah,
said, it's not like they're not having screenings because usually we attend, like if a radio station or a store gives away passes, they sponsor a screening. And critics, we attend those screenings with the audience. They're still having them. They're just not inviting us anymore because they just don't think that people rely on our opinions.
Yeah, it's down and now letterbox is pretty much taken over, right? Like all that kind of stuff, which I've never been a fan of either. Um, I want to talk about the transition from kind of like film criticism writing, which you still do, to working on books. Because I myself, I have a goal to write my own book one day. So whenever anyone releases a book, I like to kind of like, tap into that knowledge about what it's like to do that. Before Fanatics, you had your book about Jaws 2, which was fantastic because I don't know about you, but the consensus around Jaws 2 has grown much more positive over the years. I think people really dig that film as a movie on its
Yes.
own, not just a sequel to Jaws, which I think people kind of look down on Jaws 2 as like the inferior sequel instead of looking at it as a movie on its own. I think it is a movie on its own. It's a quite good movie. Before that, we worked on re-editing, reworking on stuff with the Martha's Vineyard book as well. What was that transition like for you? And if you could give advice to a budding book author on movie books, what type of advice would you give?
Be passionate about your subject. Don't don't take a job just because it's a job. After the Jaws 2 book came out, I was approached to do uh, an entire book on Canon films.
Hmm.
And I was told, well, open all the files. You can, do this. And I'm thinking, okay, Canon. I know a couple movies. You did like the Chuck Norris movies, and you did some other ones, but I just didn't have the passion. I would have done it, and I think I would have done a decent job. But I had a friend of mine in Florida had a website called Crazy Fanboy, and I wrote for him for 10 years prior before we started MediaMikes. And every year I would have a serial like today, this week in the Monkeys history, or the Oscar should have gone to. So it was always something that I was passionate about and interested about. Um, and then uh, a friend of mine told me that he was submitting some stuff. He has a really good Jaws collection. It's a Horror Hound magazine because they were going to do a 40th anniversary issue on Jaws. And I said, well, if they want someone to contribute something, let me know. And then they reached out to me, and I ended up writing the cover story.
Hmm.
Um, so so that's really how the kind of the long form writing started, and then I went from that into I was actually still working on the Jaws 2 book when that happened, and that just came along as a happenstance. I was on Martha's Vineyard in 2011 for the release of the Memories from Martha's Vineyard book on the making of Jaws, Matt Taylor's book, and talking to Tom Dunlop, who was Timmy in Jaws 2 and is an author himself. And I asked Matt, "Are you going to do a Jaws 2 version?" And he said, "No, no. It taken him, years of his life to do this one." And then he said, "You should do it." And I was
Hmm.
there with my friend Lou Pisano. Lou also wrote some stuff for Screen Magazine. He said, "You guys should do it." And so we said, "Okay, we will." And 4 years later, we had a book. But again, it was something that we were passionate about, and I think the people that we interviewed um, recognized that passion, and maybe told us stories that others might not have told.
When it comes to the Fanatics book, how long does it take to kind of compile all, not all of the, I mean, you have to find not only collectors, and you have like you have the 50 on 50 in there, which is like there's a whole section there on all the collectors from like around the globe, all these guys there, but also just diving into the different, like we are talking before about the different merchandise and stuff. How long does it take to kind of get all of that kind of together before you can even start putting the word down? Because I imagine trying to find the resources, that would have been a deep dive that would have taken quite some time.
Yeah, I think like 6 months, 6 months before I pitched it to my publisher, um, I started thinking about it. I had been approached by a publisher in the UK uh, who had read the Jaws 2 book to write a book, another making of book. And I had just a couple years ago in 2020, I had just updated Edith Blake's making of the movie Jaws book um, for the 45th anniversary. And I told him, I said, thanks for asking, but there are no more stories left to be told.
Mm.
Um, I could I could write a book, and I could try to find a different way to tell a story you've heard before, but there is no new information out there. I said, what I'd like to do, excuse me, is do a book about pop culture, the influence that the film has had on television and films and books and magazines and theater. I said, and I'd like to, highlight 50 fans. Some I have in mind, and some I'm just going to reach out and let, like a casting call and say, who wants to be part of this? And um, he thought it might be a good idea, but how many famous people could you get? Because I know like John Krasinski's a Jaws fan, and Emily Blunt, excuse me, and um, Boris Johnson was a big Jaws fan. And I said, I can't guarantee I'll get any of those.
Mm.
But I said, but the fans I do get will be just as passionate. So by then I'd accumulated enough stuff that I reached out to my publisher and said, hey, what do you think? And he said, yeah, go for it. So, and again, like the Jaws 2 book, it was something I was passionate about. It was something that, just from growing up and collecting and reading and studying, I knew the story, or I knew what TV shows had Jaws influences in them, what movies, parody Jaws. Uh, so like I said, once you have your subject in mind, and once you have a passion for that subject, it doesn't write itself, but it's a lot easier because you always have that thought going through your head. And okay, what about this? What about that? I never had a moment of writer's block where I'm like, oof, I'm stuck. What should I talk about now?
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere. Can.
Right?
Number one, favorite Jaws kill, as in favorite Jaws kind of like, bunches on like a swimmer kind of scene throughout the whole franchise. Which one comes to mind?
Quint.
Quinn. That's actually quite, yeah, that's a good one. I actually like the one as well in number two. I forgot who the character is, but the teenager goes overboard and then the shark pushes him forward to the boat and he
Oh,
holds onto
Eddie.
the boat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Eddie Newman.
that's a gnarly one as well. Next question. And you can't say Hooper for this answer. Favorite Richard Dreyfuss performance?
Favorite Richard Dreyfuss performance that everybody has seen is The Goodbye Girl.
Hmm.
Favorite performance nobody has seen is a movie called Once Around
Hmm.
that he did with Holly Hunter and Danny Aiello, that he is absolutely brilliant in.
Very cool. I got to check that one out. Um, what's your favorite piece of Jaws merchandise have you come across in your research for this book?
I say it's a tie between two things: a wallet that my grandson got me, and I think I write about it in my introduction in the book,
You do,
um,
yes.
about my father. Um, my dad and I didn't always get along, and we would go stretches without talking. But when he passed, um, I had to go down back home to Florida and you know take care of his estate and decide what to keep and what to donate. And he owned a VCR, but he only owned one film, and that was Jaws.
Mm.
So my grandson's wallet and my dad's copy of Jaws are my two personal things. My uh, coolest thing to me, I have two things. One, I have a cup from the Amity Holiday Inn from
Hmm.
the opening scene of Jaws 2. And then at the end of Jaws, as you see them at the end when they're coming up on the beach, in the distance, you see a brick chimney. And that chimney finally collapsed 2 years ago. And I've got a piece of that chimney. So those are my two cool things.
Final one, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No,
And you are
no,
correct.
no,
Very good.
no, 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 no.
No, no, absolutely not. I want to end our conversation because I have a theory about Hooper's character, not Hooper's character, about Chief Brody in Jaws, and I've never been able to discuss this with anyone.
Mhm.
And I don't know whether this has been solved or not. I haven't read the book. I haven't seen every documentary. I haven't heard every conversation. So you need to correct me for my arrogance, in my ignorance. Sorry, if someone's already answered this. But this is a theory that I had ever since I've seen the movie. Okay, so the scene where they're on a boat and they're sharing scars, different scar
Mhm.
story. Notably, it's Hooper and Quint that are going back and forth sharing their stuff, right? There's a moment in the film, however, where Brody's watching them, he's sipping on his coffee or what have you, and he's about to, I know he wants to say something, and he's motioning to his shirt, and he kind of lifts his shirt up a bit. And I always thought to myself, I think that he has a story to tell there. My theory is that the reason why Brody went to this beach community, even though he doesn't like the water, and the reason why he took his family there, and I think he got shot in the line of duty, and I think he has a scar on his belly to prove it. And I
Oh,
think he would
wow.
have talked. I think that when he opened up his shirt to talk about, I think he was going to say or make mention to the scar on there, which is, and to me, it kind of all makes sense as to why the guy who clearly is really good at his job, but why he moved away to a place where there's hardly any danger, only to tackle a bloody shark in the water. The reason he did that is because he got shot in the line of duty. He's got a scar. What do you think of that theory?
That is brilliant. I never would have thought of that. I always assume, I think most fans do, that he has a appendix scar from having his appendix removed.
Ah, right. Okay.
That's what I always thought it was. He like looks
Mm.
at it, he's like, eh,
Yeah,
why
not manly
bother?
enough.
Why
Yeah.
bother? But I like yours. That
Um,
is,
that's just a thing of mine because I always wondered like he's not of an age where he kind of retired out of the job. But like Roy Scheider around that time, how old would he be? Like maybe early 30s or so. I'm not sure.
32. He was 42 when they filmed.
So I don't think he will be retired out of the job. Most like detective stories sometimes have detectives in the 50s and such. They
Mhm.
stick to that till they get their pension, right? But that's just a theory of mine anyway. So yeah.
That's a great theory. You should publish that on my Jaws 50 page.
Hey, I'd love to write something for the Jaws 50 page. You just let me know when you want it and I'll send something over to you.
Yeah, certainly.
Um,
You
so
want
for
to do a
everyone,
guest re want to do a guest review when Jaws comes back to the cinema? I'll put
absolutely.
it up on my MediaMike site. Yeah, certainly.
Sounds sounds good. Before then though, for everyone out there listening, Fanatics, 50 years of Jaws. Highly recommend people check out this book if you're a fan of movies, pop culture influence that movies has on pop culture, and all that good stuff. And of course, a fan of Jaws, and who isn't a fan of Jaws? Actually, that's always been a litmus test of mine. If you don't like Jaws, we're not getting along. So,
Can't be
and the
friends.
pineapple
Exactly.
and the pineapple on pizza can go well. Yeah. Both of those. But Michael A. Smith, I just want to say thank you so very much for your time today. Congratulations on the
Thank you for
release of the
watching the
book.
Matt's
And
Movie
yeah, I'd love to
Reviews
be in
channel.
touch with you again
Please
in the future.
subscribe
It's
for
been a
more
pleasure.
reviews, podcast
Certainly. My
interviews,
pleasure to
and
be here. Thank
exclusive
you.
content.